Welcome to episode 260 of the Ages Podcast. I'm David Stewart, and I am joined today by my brilliant co-host, Margaret Mann.
Thank you, David. This week, we are speaking with Mark Rampolla, founder of Zico Coconut Water, investor, advisor, and someone whose personal and professional transformation is as compelling as the brand he has built and the brands that he has helped build. Mark's story isn't just about business success, it's about redefining freedom, recalibrating identity, and mastering energy as a creative tool.
Time is relative. Energy is the most valuable resource I believe we have. And our attention. I call it attention. You could easily call it focus. Now I think about those all the time. I build my life around my energy.
After my conversation with Mark, we'll be talking through 3 headlines that caught our attention this week in the ageist world.
Yes, and a bonus. I want to hear your thoughts on the jewel heist. Seems everyone is talking about that. So we'll talk about that, plus 3 other stories that include the problem with AI-generated humans, psychedelics for menopause support, and gyms banning phones.
Lots to look forward to following a brief message from our sponsors. I had major knee surgery. I'm focused on healing myself. MitoPure from Timeline is helping me do just that, supporting my mitochondria for better energy and strength. Now in a 0 sugar strawberry gummy. Yum. Get 20% off. That's 20% off at timelinenutrition.com with code AGEIST, AGEIST. The first time I cooked a new Ohana Reserve Aged Cut from Maui Nui venison, I knew I couldn't go back. This isn't just meat. It's wild harvested axis deer from Maui, aged 14 days for that deep, rich flavor that makes you stop mid-bite. No feedlots, no antibiotics, just clean, nutrient-dense venison that feels as good as it tastes. Subscribe now at mauinuivenison.com/aegis and get a free 12-pack of venison jerky sticks with your first order of $79 or more. That's MAUINUI venison.com/aegis. But be quick, the Ohana Reserve Cuts come in limited quantities, so once they're gone, that's it. Finally, when you're asked where you heard about Maui Nui, don't forget to mention the Ages Podcast. It goes a long way for the show. Really quick, I want to give a shout out to LMNT, the 0 sugar electrolyte drink mix that's become part of my daily ritual. Whether I'm working out or just powering through the day, it keeps me feeling sharp and hydrated. Try it for yourself. Go to drinkelement.com/ageist and get a free 8-serving sample pack with any purchase. That's drinklmnt.com/ageist. Thanks again for tuning in. Let's give Mark Rampolla a call. Mark, so great to have you on the show. I'm such a fan. I'm really glad that you could make some time for us today.
Thank you, David. I'm honored to be here. I am a fan as well. I love reading the Ages profiles. So I feel honored to be part of it and honored to be here.
Tell me, where does this podcast find you today?
I am in Venice Beach in our office, the Ground Force Capital office.
Tell me about the book, Entrepreneur's Guide to Freedom.
Yeah, Entrepreneur's Guide to Freedom. So I've come to realize, I think they say of teachers, people teach what they need to learn. I think that's true for me as a writer. It's sort of how I work my stuff out. So I wrote my first book after selling Zico, High Hanging Fruit, that sort of helped me make sense of that. And I got to a point in my life after selling Zico and quote unquote having all this success, built the brand, sold it, plenty of money, beautiful house, everything that's supposed to deliver success. And what I came to see is what my real desire was: freedom, a sense of freedom. And as I started to look back on my life and look at my current life in that state, I realized, God, I'm still trapped. Like I'm chasing the next deal. I'm working on this. I'm working crazy hours. I'm not even sure why I'm doing it. And my health is not what it should be. My marriage is falling apart. Like all of a sudden it's like, wait a second, this is success. This is freedom. So I went on a personal 7-year journey to just sort of unwind and reset my life, and felt like, okay, I'm at a place where I'm probably at the halfway mark. Like, how do I want to live the rest of my life? And it took me a long while to sort of really think and feel through my life experiences, what I had and where I wanted to go. And so along the way, I journaled, I met with psychologists and analysts and coaches and spiritual guides and did retreats and breath work and all sorts of stuff. And I journal. And I was trying to kind of make sense of this myself and came to what for me, I began to see as sort of my own steps or path to sort of rebuilding my life. And little by little, I think things started to shift. And so the first one that really took notice was my business partner, Dan Gluck, and started to say, Mark, something's changed in you. What's different? And so I started to share more with him what I was going through. We brought in some outside coaches. We started to apply some of these principles in our team. And little by little, things just got, I don't know, lighter, easier, more fun. And the results came too. And so I decided, and at the same time, I'm worked with, hundreds of entrepreneurs over the years. We talk to 1,000 entrepreneurs a year. And I see how many that most are trapped. They've got this, for all these reasons I can talk about, trapped by their success, their drive to success, trying to be this perfect person, this perfect entrepreneur, this perfect leader. And I felt like, oh God, I want to help, and I think I've cracked at least something for me. Let me put it out there. So I started kind of sharing some of this material with others, and the response was great. And so it just sort of came about. I didn't set out with the intention of writing a book. I set out with the intention of finding my own sort of purpose in life. And the book came through me. And so that's what this is about for me, is just sort of sharing my journey and being as transparent as I can on my struggles and my learnings. And, if it resonates with anyone, that's a blessing.
I had dinner with a good friend of mine last night, and I think at the age of at 44 or something, she sold her company to a very large conglomerate. It was a big number. And the day after it began what she said was the worst year of her life. Did that happen to you?
No, honestly, it didn't. But I have heard that story again and again and again. But there's different versions. Mine was a little different because I think in many ways, I had done a fair amount of work of separating my own identity from the business, which is one of the challenges people have. That's Zico's the business. I'm me, and we're different entities. And so that first, I would say 2 years or so, especially the first year, I was a little bit like a kid in a candy store. I had money in the bank. I had no job. I had a no-show consulting gig with Coke. So I had a great time. We built a beautiful house on the beach. I traveled. But I also, underneath that all, was drinking a ton, was investing personally like a little bit of a maniac. I was active, super active, but then my back would pop out every 3 or 4 months, right? I was all this stuff that I thought, and my wife and I thought we would address. We just didn't quite address it. So it took a little while, right? And everybody's journey is a little different. It took me a couple years to realize that, God, this isn't what I wanted. In many ways, that might be a blessing that happened to her that quickly, right? That she's at that young age has a chance to reset. But I hear that story again and again and again. And my view now is the ones that are willing to share it, or at least even admit it to themselves, they're on their way, right? How many people have you met? I know how many I've met that have tens of millions, hundreds of millions, billions in the bank, and they're trapped. They're still chasing, not really conscious, not in their body, not experiencing life. They got all the trappings, but they don't feel fulfilled. And I hear it. And that's those are successful ones, right? And then there's the 90+% that will never have, quote unquote, a business success, which that's the stats, right? Probably higher. And the other statistic that's scary, you may be aware of this one. I forget where the research was done, very credible university. 80+% of entrepreneurs will have a mental health crisis during their entrepreneurial journey. 80%, 2 to 4 times the average population, right? So let's talk about, if the successful ones aren't, living the dream, then what about the rest of us that are in the weeds chasing, right? So I call that the big myth. It's this big myth that I'm trying to blow up for entrepreneurs.
I would say that actually being an entrepreneur is a form of mental illness.
What makes
right?
you say that, David? I'm fascinated by that.
You have to be entirely delusional, right? You have to believe in this thing that doesn't exist, that no one else believes in, that's impossible to do. And everyone is telling you, really? Why don't you get a job? Like, and so every day you wake up and you're faced with that. And then it's a certain kind of person. The people come to me a lot. They're like, well, should I start a business? And it's like, this is not for the faint of heart. Like, this is a special kind of programming to do this. And then I think what happens is you and I probably the same thing. Like, it's all in on this thing.
Yeah.
But then the goal is reached.
Yeah.
So people are goal oriented, not process oriented, right? And now once the goal is reached, it's like, who am I? Where am I going? And they go, I mean, I've seen really extremes about how this can go. And I think it's one of the more fascinating things that I observe. And I counseled a buddy of mine who also exited. I said, this is going to happen to you. Just like take a beat. And he took a beat for a day.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
And the other sort of career that fascinates me is the professional athlete.
Yeah.
I mean, they're told from early on, like this point, there's going to be an endpoint here. And although they're aware of it, they're counseled on it, they've been told about this their whole life. One day you're on the cover of Wheaties, and the next day you are nobody.
Right.
And it's also a very abrupt, who am I? Where am I going? What you're talking about, purpose. What do I do?
Yeah. Look, it's a great point, David. I hadn't really thought about it. I have thought about the comparison with athletes in other ways. For example, who am I to say? It's easy to judge, right? That at 22 years old with making millions and millions in the bank, I wouldn't be an idiot with money, right? I'm certain I would have been, right? But I think that parallel is really interesting, relevance. And what I came to realize is that, I think sports is a prime example, right? Entrepreneurship, sports, some of these other fields, becoming a doctor, becoming a lawyer. It's like the general myth is have a great idea or choose the right career, work your butt off, right? For as long as it takes, going harder and faster and harder and make a pile of money, and then you'll be free, right? And there's nothing wrong with that, right? It's just I've found helpful to say, oh, okay, that's the formula I have in my head, right? Because one of the tricks I use with leaders and entrepreneurs is distinguish between fact and story. What's the story you're telling yourself, right? Nothing wrong with it, but we're all doing it, and we aren't always conscious of it, right? So, oh, interesting. I think this is the equation, right? And what's fascinating for me about entrepreneurs is many, especially today, so data-driven, right? Especially the digital ones. A/B testing, fail fast, do all these test and learn and look at all the data. But they're not looking at themselves and saying, here's my hypothesis that if I work this hard, this will happen and therefore that. And test and learn, right? Oh, interesting. I have this programming that I believe that, I must work 80 hours a week, right? That's what a leader does. That's what an entrepreneur does. No problem. Great. Would you be willing to test and learn a little bit? What if one day or 1 week you dialed back a little bit? One exercise I have people do is an energy up and energy down audit. Okay, what if you took one meeting out that is just an energy down, right? You realize you think you should be there. You have to be there. Try not going and test and learn, right? Because it turns out a lot of times the underlying emotional fear is, am I relevant, right? Oh, shoot, the meeting actually went fine. The business is even doing better if I'm less engaged in some ways. What does that mean for me, right? That work allows one to see reality more clearly. That prepares for whatever choices you're going to make down the road, right? So that's one little trick I use to just help people see the stories and to ask, what if the opposite were true? Just hypothetically, right? Can you allow for that possibility that maybe the best thing that's happening for you is this difficult time? Maybe the best thing is to operate a little bit differently. Maybe the best thing is to stay in your business. Maybe the best thing is to leave your business. Bring in a CEO, not bring in a CEO. Right? Just to contemplate these things with also love and compassion, because I think I'm sure, identify and know this. Entrepreneurs, we're the hardest critics, right, on ourselves, right? So I try to encourage people, have some love and compassion for yourself first, for yourself.
You've had this incredibly diverse path. There's the Peace Corps, there's Zico, there's Investor. Talk to me about these chapters and how they
Yeah.
influenced who you are today.
Great question, David. Is I do think of them as chapters, especially as I look back, like the Peace Corps chapter, right? Like, do I want to change the world, do volunteer work, do development work? I had a corporate, MBA, then corporate chapter, then the Zico chapter. And, what I've come to see is I feel so blessed, and both blessed and fortunate and appreciative of myself for allowing myself to kind of create these experiences. But I think I really do have a deep, deep, deep curiosity about life. And frankly, a deep, deep, deep curiosity about me.
Mm.
And some people would say that's, egotistical or narcissistic in a way. Look, we all have a narcissistic tendency, right? That's just a given. But self-curiosity, if you don't know yourself, you have, first of all, it's the greatest relationship you're going to have in your life. And it's also, I believe, the way to understand any other human. And so everything I've done in some way or another, I can look back, especially now, and see was learning about myself. Particularly Zico, I had a lot of fear. I didn't think I was an entrepreneur. I had an aversion to entrepreneurship in many ways. Thought it was weird, and that's not really what success is about. But I can see I had a lot of fear. And often what we hate or love is a place where we're, have an opportunity to learn. And so Zico, in many ways, for me, was challenging this hypothesis for me. Can I take this risk? Can I be an entrepreneur? Can I get out of my comfort zone? Can I, create and bring something to the world? The investor side was in many ways the polar opposite, right? I think I began to get curious. In fact, I've had this curiosity forever. How does the world really work? And particularly around money. And I thought I understood it a little bit. And then I, went to the corporate world, did an MBA, started Zico. And I started to understand, I don't have a clue, right? There are trillion-dollar, institutions and families that, and businesses that they're good people. I met some of these people. They're making good decisions. How do they think? What do they value? What do they look for? And so I decided to take this path. Look, can I become an institutional, sort of grade investor that understands, before I criticize, how the world should work and what should happen, really understand what it takes to think about, capital and managing and investing capital. And so, now this book in this new phase for me is, I think I'm moving into a teaching phase, and it's kind of emerging. It's not always intentional, these paths sort of emerge. And so we'll see where it goes.
Mark brings such honesty and depth to what success really feels like behind the scenes. And before we get into more of that, here's a quick word from the partners helping support conversations like this one.
Today's show is also brought to you by Timeline. I want to talk to you about something that could change the way you think about aging and cellular health. We've all heard the phrase, mitochondria are the powerhouses of the cell. But what does that really mean to us as we get older? Well, it turns out quite a lot. Mitochondria don't just produce energy, they are central to muscle strength, vitality, and how we age overall. By the time we hit our 30s, these little powerhouses start to decline. No good. Less energy, slower recovery, aging that you can feel. Yeah, we know what that's like. And I'll tell you, coming off of major knee surgery, I've never been more aware of just how important recovery and strength really are. That's why I've been taking MitoPure. It's a scientifically backed formula that supports mitochondrial health, helping increase muscle strength and energy in as little as 2 months. No extra workouts needed, just real cellular level support. And now, get this, it comes in a 0 sugar strawberry gummy. Yum. Same science, same power, now easier to take every day. If you're thinking about trying Timeline, this is your sign. We're offering our listeners 20% off. That's 20% off your first purchase. Just use code AGEIST at checkout
at timelinenutrition.com. That's ageist, 20% off. More strength, more energy from the inside out.
We talk a lot about what goes into our food, but rarely do we think about where it comes from, how the animal lived, what it ate, whether it ever saw the sun. The first time I cooked Maui Nui's Ohana Reserve venison, I could taste the difference. This was meat that lived well and free, and it shows. No stress, no hormones, just clean, nutrient-dense, unbelievably tender, wild venison aged for 14 days. What's more, you feel better after eating it. That's not hype. It's 22 grams of protein per 100 calories and a freedom you can taste. But this isn't in stores, it's subscription only. The Ohana Reserve box gives you 3 premium aged cuts and ground venison delivered frozen right to your door. Go to mauinuivenison.com/ageist and grab your box before subscriptions fill. And get this, they're throwing in a free 12-pack of jerky sticks with your first order of $79 or more. That's MAUINUI venison.com/ageist. Once you've tried this, nothing else measures up. Last thing here, when they ask you where you heard about Maui Nui, make sure to mention the Ageist podcast. It really helps support the show. Thanks.
Launching something like Zico, running something like that takes an enormous amount of energy. How long ago did you sell Zico?
2013. So 12 years.
12 years. So how has energy and focus changed for you since you've
Like
sold?
David, you nailed those are the two I think a lot about. Time is relative. Energy is the most valuable resource I believe we have. And our attention. I call it attention. You could easily call it focus. And so I think a lot about those. I think about how in my life I have burned through ridiculous amounts of energy. I look back with love and compassion on energy up, energy down, drinking, caffeine, business, excitement, and focus all over the place. ADHD, like probably 80% of entrepreneurs out there. So that's a challenging one for me. Now I think about those all the time. I build my life around my energy. I build my life around it. When I go to sleep, what I consume in the evening, both food, beverage, not drinking, healthy food, not too late, how I sleep, how I wake up, my exercise routine, my caffeine routine, my work routine, my schedule, my routine, all of it is designed for me to be able to show up in full, on time for this one experience. And that's the focus choice. When I can be in choice, for example, we tried to schedule this a couple of weeks ago, right? I think I had to reschedule and I chose to reschedule, right? And then this got back on my schedule this morning and I looked at it on Monday and said, yes, I want to do this. I'm excited to meet David. I enjoyed getting to know Ageist. And so I'm in choice, but I want to show up, right? The right way. And this is where I'm going to put my energy at this moment. Because what I've come to see is that's all there is. That how much time I spent and we all spend in the past. I should have done this. Why didn't I do that? Or in the future. Well, I got, right after David, I have this. Tonight I have this. Next weekend I have that. We know from sort of quantum science, they don't exist. Or, I can't explain that, but I can read that. But I know that from experience. They don't exist. This is it. And what I've come to see is in the business world, I think in every field, but in business, this is where the magic happens. That's it. Where I am, where I choose to put my time and attention, and am I showing up with my full being, full body, my head, heart, gut, soul, right here, right now. That's the opportunity to create magic. Because think about anything in business, right? A meeting you have, a connection you have, it's all these little present moments. And so I think you nailed in many ways for me the secret to, maybe it's not, the meaning of life, but it's certainly a way that I'm choosing to go through life is maintain and balance my energy so it's there when I need it and be choiceful about where I focus my attention. Those are the two most important things for me in this phase of my life.
You separate time and energy in what you just said. And I tend to agree that energy is really the thing. And it's related to time,
It is.
but it's different.
Yes.
I have less energy now than I did when I was 20.
Mhm.
But when I was 20, it was just all about releasing
Yeah, right. Right.
less
Right.
energy.
Yes.
And now it's about not so much how do I use my time, but how do I use my energy?
Mm. Oh, David, we're going to have some good conversations going forward. Yes. Look, I'll give you an example for me, and I know this is true for anyone, but particularly entrepreneurs, right? Look back on some key, super productive aspects. I call this, there's an exercise I have in the book and I share with people, peak moments of freedom. When you look back, it could be a week, a month, a year, a decade, whatever it is. Pick these certain things that's like, wow, okay, I was in my zone. I was super productive. It was easy. It just flowed. And the outside world acknowledges that that was something valuable. I got good feedback on it. I just feel great about it, right? It was like, it's one of my peak moments where I felt really free and alive. And I challenge everyone to look at those. You'll probably have a 10 to 100x productivity at very particular times relative to other times in your life, right? Or other days in your weeks or stuff like that. So for me, I can look, for example, on, when I was writing this book, there's times when it would be like a slog. What am I doing? I'm beating myself up. And there's other times where it's like, boom, I have a chapter done in an hour. I see this in work as well. There's times when I think I get all anxious about, oh, I got to work on this, helping this company with their strategy. And I want to think through it and have all the data and have the right people there. And, oh, I need 3 hours and da, 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 da. But when I can let that go, do the work to prepare, maybe have people present things to me, maybe set up the right context, have the right people around, show up with the right energy, with the right focus, the right intention, bam! It's like we can get done in 10 minutes. What could have taken 10 hours, right? That's power. That's efficiency. That's energy. That's zone of genius is one term I love to use for it. Finding those elements where we bring our maximum, right? So yes, time is a component of that. But I think the interplay is, how do you manage your time in a way to maximize your energy, would be the way to say it.
Right. Older people understand, younger people do not.
We have to. But look, I will tell you, I'm confident in this. I think you said it really well. Net, I have more energy than I ever had in my life.
Mhm.
I'll use a term, you talked about expending it, right? Counter to that is contain it, right? How do you contain it? And how do you understand one exercise I use as well is energy leaks, or little things that are energy drains for us. I'll give you one example from yesterday, real time. My partner Dan and I do this weekly exercise where it's called a clearing exercise. Anything that's on our mind 3 times or more, that's a little pet peeve with the other, we share. And we share it mainly from the person who's sharing its perspective of energy. So he shared with me, hey, we were on this call the other day. You said blah, 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 blah. And I felt this. I felt like you weren't valuing my opinion. You were sort of talking over me, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't really matter the specifics, but the process is he's doing that. So because he's aware, he's been draining his energy because he's running this story in his head. Mark doesn't pay attention to me. Mark doesn't do da, 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 da. That's all an energy drain, right? It's a leak. Nothing wrong with that. We all do that. But by closing this loop and sharing it more often than not, doesn't matter what I did or didn't do. I don't even necessarily have to respond. I'm a forum for him to get back into integrity with his energy. And then the leak's plugged, right? And we do this all the time, right? Phone call from somebody, meeting from somebody where we should be there, where we feel obligated. Those are little leaks, right? It's that extra drink. It's that drink when you said you're not going to. It's that late night TV show and all those little leaks. You plug all those leaks. It's unbelievable. Professionally, personally, romantically, right? Talk about like, I can't help but think, David, about, sort of the child teen-like desire to expend energy, right? Versus contain it and the power that comes with that.
If it's okay, I want to get into a little bit about your practices.
Sure. Happy to.
Staying grounded, because what you're talking about here, this requires, I don't want to do a program, but there's a methodology here.
There's a methodology. One of the chapters in the book is Freedom Takes Discipline, because I used to think my goal, unconsciously, I can see this so clearly. My goal was get to a place where I have enough money where I don't have to be disciplined. I don't. I can drink whatever I want. I can eat whatever I want. I know that I can look back and laugh at that, right? It's beautiful. It's wonderful. Okay, now let's talk about reality. The other thing I know about myself, and a lot of entrepreneurs have this as well, I didn't think I had needs or really needs or interests, right? Like that. I particularly, let's talk about needs. I thought, okay, other people have needs. I know that. I don't really have needs. Like I can get by with little sleep and boy. So as I began to really know myself and accept, you know what? I need sleep. You know what? I can drink, but when I drink, man, I'm just off the next day. I can eat anything I want, but I do it 2-3 days in a row and my energy comes down. I can go out and, run 10 miles today. But if I do that and then come back and don't stretch and warm up and stretch afterwards, I'm going to be on the floor. 80% probability, right? So for me to run, net, I've finally accepted to get what I want in life, I need to be ridiculously disciplined. And so in many ways, it is a reprogram. And what's fascinating to me is how so many entrepreneurs are so obsessed with technology and data, but yet they operate with this like 18th century, operating system. As an example, there's no place for emotions in business. There's no place, right? Okay, first of all, good luck, right? Like we're human, we have emotions. Second of all, what's wrong with emotions, right? They're just data, they're just energy moving through the body. And now we know neuroscience actually draws a direct correlation between manifesting our intention and emotional resonance, right? It's clear, it's well documented, right? So it's like, and that applies to 1,000 things. How recently are people only talking about sleep, right? I mean, until a few years ago, I knew, plenty of 40-something that are now in their early 40s, investment banking types that are like, sleep's for losers. Like, I don't need sleep. Like, yeah, good luck, right? So my routine is almost monk-like, I have to say. And it's just what it has to be. So it doesn't matter. I'll start actually in the evening, because what I've come to see is the quality of my day starts the night before. And so I'm very disciplined about what I eat. Like I used to laugh at people that had dinner at, 6:30, like, oh God, old people, losers, whatever. Man, forget about it. If I'm not done by 7:30, I'm going to be off, right? And so I eat early. I eat super clean and I eat a big thorough dinner and I'm done. If I have something else late, I love chocolate. If I have chocolate at night, my sleep is off, I'm out. I almost never drink. And if I drink, it's never during the week. And it's like a glass of something, right? It used to be a volume that I'm embarrassed to even recall, right? And then I do no media after probably, 8:30. I read, I meditate, and I'm in bed by 9 and out by 9:30, latest 10. And I get damn close to 8 hours. Actually, 7.5 is what I've kind of optimized, kind of works for me in my sleep rhythm. And I know when I'm in a good place, I wake up without an alarm within minutes of my targeted time. When I get out of bed, I immediately drink, a liter of either Zico and water or some combination. And I'm on the floor. I do a nasal spray. Whatever, brush my teeth, and I'm on the floor doing a stretching routine. Because what I've seen is when I don't do that over a series of days, I have probably about a 60% probability that my lower back will go out at some point in the future. So I do it every morning. I don't care where I am in the world. If I only have 10 minutes, but ideally 30 to 40 minutes, stretching, back opening, moving around. It's whole sort of Pilates yoga routine. And then I meditate. No matter where I'm in the world. If I'm on a plane, I get on the floor and I meditate. It doesn't matter. Sometimes it's great. Sometimes it's good. I usually do it for 30 minutes. At 40, if I can get it. If I can get 10, I get 10. Then I start my day. I rarely have meetings before 9 because I take that time in the morning. I look at what I call my freedom binder, where I'm kind of my priorities, my goals. Then I get into the objectives. What are our OKRs, our objectives as a firm, my personal objectives for the year. That way I know that day I'm planning what I have to get done. 4 or 5 key things I need to get done. I meet with my assistant almost every day. Look at the calendar for a week or 2 out. What's energy up? What's energy down? Where do I have to be at? And I've trained her to fight me. She needs to fight my tendency to be nice, my tendency to cave, my tendency to not prioritize my time. So she challenges me. Wait a second. You have thought time Thursday afternoon. Why do you keep scheduling people there? Well, it's an important one. What are you doing? Like, why? What's going on? Right. So, and then my day is like, I have not a ton of meeting time, email blocks, I have check-in blocks, I have space between, and I'm done by 4:30. I'm done. Go to the gym because I start my day, sometimes I'm in the office by 7, so I'm good. And then I work till we go to the gym. And then I'll, maybe check some email, maybe do a little bit of planning, a little bit of reflecting, some journaling, and then repeat. And when I do that, my energy's really good. I'm present. I'm content. I'm happy. I'm productive. And sometimes, it always gets a little bit out of whack, always, right? But I keep that same routine on vacation. That's what I need.
I'm often asked to speak to groups of business leaders or entrepreneurs. And, they're used to looking at P&L and balance sheets and understanding assets and liabilities. And I often tell them the greatest asset your company has is you. How are you protecting this asset in the same way you would protect another valuable corporate asset, your knobs? So,
Absolutely.
right? In physical training, there's something called a deloading time.
Yes.
So you whatever you periodicize, during the week or every 6 weeks, there's sort of an off period. And what I found is in the morning now, similar routine to you, I get up, I brush my teeth, I have water, and then I live right by the river. And then this is my deload time. So go out and I'll listen to some meditation tape. I watch the river. And that's like 40 minutes of there's no load, right? I find that the rest of the day, I'm just better. If there's no deload, the stress is cumulative.
Absolutely.
You have a fail point.
This is, everybody's different. And that's the thing I came to realize too is look, I share my model, you share your model. The point is not your model or my model, right? They work for you, they work for me. Find your model, right? Test and learn yourself. What I categorically refuse to accept is I hear people say, oh, well, that's easy for him. You've done this and you're this successful and da, da, da. Okay. What's the story you're telling yourself? You got to wait, right? I'm telling you, it starts right here, right now. Nobody will give you the time if you don't give it to yourself. Nobody will prioritize if you don't prioritize yourself. And to your point, some people super productive in the morning, can load in the morning. Some people load at night. It changes over time and age. Watch your energy. That's what I train people to do. And look, there's a very, to your point as an investor, there's a very selfish, first of all, I'm selfish for myself. I like my energy and I like what I want to do. But when I look across our investments, my personal one and our firm ones, I got 100 data points, right? And I'm quite confident, and now we are very rigorous about the research we do, the diligence we do into the individual leaders of the companies we invest in, because there's a very high correlation. It's not perfect, very high correlation. Those that take care of themselves physically, but also mentally and emotionally. Those that do the inner work achieve outer success. And what I've come to believe is your company's growth is often not purely correlated, but highly correlated with your own growth. You got to grow ahead of it, right? To build the capacity to manage what's coming, right? And so I bring this to our companies and leaders in part because it makes good investment sense, right? Like I want a return on our investment. So I'm going to help you take care of yourself to make sure that we're all getting, the best outcome we can.
Let's pause for a moment to thank a sponsor that shares our commitment to longevity and health span.
It's hot out there. And if you're like us, you're chasing sunlight, long hikes, and maybe even a splash in the ocean when you can. But all that fun comes with a hidden cost: hydration. That's where LMNT comes in, LMNT. It's not just about quenching thirst. It's about replacing the essential electrolytes your body actually needs. Plus, good news, my favorite flavor, lemonade salt, is back in stock. It's a salty, sweet crowd pleaser that brings back fond memories, and it keeps me sharp whether I'm on a trail or at my desk. Hydration is one of those simple daily wins that stack up over time. So visit drinklmnt.com/ageist and get yourself a free 8-serving sample pack with the purchase of any electrolyte drink mix. That's drinklmnt.com/ageist. Stay salty, stay strong.
You mentioned some words there: adaptability, agility. You mentioned the word resilience.
Yes.
Earlier on. These are key human traits. They're also the only way your business survives.
Absolutely.
Those. Who's ever driving the boat needs to also have those qualities.
Absolutely. One other term I use for it that I just love, it's a little bit of a weird word, but is become imperturbable. Imagine like the river you're watching, right? Where it's like the rock that's there and in front of the sea. The sea can rage all at once. The rock is solid, right? And so that doesn't mean unemotional. I've come to learn. I used to think that. That means the ability to take in whatever's coming and process it. Just like a digestive system. We have an emotional system that we take some stuff in. We have a good digestive system. We get rid of it here. We get rid of it here. We take what we need and we move forward, right? Sometimes something's out of whack. Our system can respond quickly, right? Emotions and experiences are the same way, right? You want to be a leader. The bigger the leader, the more you're taking on. You got to learn to process that stuff. But when you can process it quickly and deal with it, know yourself, know what you need, take care of yourself, show up in the right way, it's possible to be imperturbable, where no matter what comes at you, you can manage it. Doesn't mean you have to solve everything. You know when to stay out of the way, when to lean in. Your intuition's in full, it's full bloom. You know when to let somebody else step in. And you know what? People come in, and often people step into that void when it's the right thing. So I've seen this 1,000 times, and I've seen the opposite where leaders get, trapped and stuck and have to and should, and they burn out, right? Or they blow up or something happens. And frankly, that was my experience too. Like in many ways, I was on a path where I could have been, it's not high probability, but I could have been dead and broke. I hadn't built the capacity to manage the experiences that I have today. Had I tried to do this fresh out of selling Zika, it would have blown up. I'm certain of that. I would have blown up.
Well, I wanted to ask you about a big challenge that you've had recently, which is your house burned down in Palisade. We've been talking the talk.
Right.
How did you manage this?
I think that absolutely was a chance for me to kind of eat my own cooking, as one might say. And so, what I know about myself is that I am really good in a crisis. Like a lot of entrepreneurs, I know how to get shit done. I know how to lean in. I know how to plow forward. I've mastered that skill set. And so that was my initial tendency is, okay, got to be strong, got to lean through, solve this, da, 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 da. I have a partner in my life now, romantic partner. She's got 2 young kids. She was living somewhere else, but she got evacuated to coordinate, move, schedule, da, 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 da. Good at all that stuff. What I decided is, okay, I'm going to approach this one differently. What have been my blind spots in the past? One of my biggest blind spots was since I was probably 8 years old, I started to deny, avoid, bury my emotions. Nothing wrong with that. Most men do that. Certainly most entrepreneurs do that, right? Don't feel. It's not helpful. It's not necessary. But I realized that bit me in the ass in many ways in the past. So this time I decided, you know what? I'm going to feel it all. And so for really one of the first times in my life, I went there. I had to prompt myself sometimes with sad music and, other things, but I felt all the sadness, all the mourning, the lost fantasy of this house that I thought was going to be mine forever, all the things I lost, we lost. My girls are graduated, been amicably split from my wife, so it was just me, but it was our family home. We had all of our family stuff there, memories, books, photos. I cried and I was really sad. And then I got angry, at me and why did I go self-insured and why the city and the state and the universe and da, 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 da. So and I went through all the cycles of grief again and again and again and again. And what I started to learn is, oh my God, they're just emotions. Like I had given these like, this is good, this is bad, right? Joy is good, sadness is bad. What I realized is they're just energy moving through the body. And I also realized it's a whole nother experience of life I had been avoiding or denying. And so I just felt it. I cried, I got sad, I got angry, but I kept to my routine, more or less. Even in teeny hotel rooms or on the road or wherever, I meditated, I worked out, I wrote, I journaled. And that whole process allowed me to, I think, both get through, get everything I could out of the experience, and also build my own emotional processing capabilities, right? For real-time experience. And then in the midst of that, the other thing I'm really good at is move on, like plan, get the next thing, right? So my old self would have been like, okay, I got to get a new place, get a new place, get a new place. Immediately, oh, maybe I buy the Palisades, maybe I build, maybe I took a breath and decided, I'm not going to make a decision for a year. I'm not going to make a decision. I'm going to rent something small and I'm going to let the proverbial and literal ashes settle, dust settle. So I'm getting near. That'll be January. It will be a year. I've decided I'm taking 2. I'm living in a place that's smaller than any place I've lived since grad school. And you know what? I'm good. I'm going to have a big, beautiful house again. I'm confident in that. When the time is right and when I'm ready, it'll appear, it'll be. And so I've come to realize this has been one of the most extraordinary experiences of my life. This happened for me, not to me. And I'm still seeing what emerges. I don't fully understand it, but I'm just, it's a knowing. 5, 10 years from now, I'm going to look back and say, my life never would have been what it was without those fires. Thank God for those fires. Other people have different experiences. I'm not passing any judgment on that. I'm not wishing that on anyone. This is my own, journey and experience.
As we're getting close to the end of our time here, Mark, I want you to look right in the camera. I'm going to ask you, what advice would you give someone who's, our age, midlife, and they want to know how to navigate it, how to be curious and open, but they're not quite sure what to do?
Start with this. Build a habit of asking yourself, what am I thinking right now at any little moment, particularly in a situation like this, and write it down. Write it down. Get to know your own thoughts. Just get to know them. Love and compassion, no judgment. Try not to judge. If you judge, get to know your judger, right? We all have that one within us. Write it down. And then ask yourself a few questions. One is, am I sure? Am I certain that's true? Whatever that question is. I can't be curious. I don't know how to be curious. Write it down. Are you certain you haven't been curious? You can't be curious. And then ask yourself, how is that familiar to me? Oh, yeah, I've thought that and thought a lot. Are there any other places where you have data to support the opposite? How could the opposite be true? How might you be highly curious? Can you look at examples or places in your life? That's it. Start with that. Getting to see our thoughts and just created the teeniest bit of separation between you and your thoughts and questioning them with love and compassion and curiosity. Start with that.
Very well said. Because if we question the story we tell ourselves about ourselves and we say to ourselves, maybe the story's not true, what else isn't true?
There you here's the scary part. This is what I'll tell people. I finally understand two phrases very deeply. Ignorance is bliss. It is. Because once you go down this path, it never stops. David, I ask myself that all the time, and it's another layer, right? So be careful what you ask for. And there's an incredible book written years ago by a brilliant psychologist, Eric Fromm, I think it's Fromm, Escape from Freedom. And his premise is predominantly written around the time of post-World War II. So there's certainly some contextual importance there. Most people don't want to be free.
Mm-hmm.
They don't. And so that you start asking yourself this, it's scary where it might lead, but I'll tell you, you start to see reality. You just start to see it. And it's an awakening process. It just is gradual, little by little. But once you start to see, it's just, you can choose to shut your eyes. You can choose. But you're right. It doesn't end.
Mark, thank you so much for your time today.
You're welcome, David. I really enjoyed this. This was fun. I learned about myself and about you, and I love that.
Every once in a while, we have somebody on the show that helps me become a better version of myself. And you're one of them. So,
that warms my heart, David. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
I loved getting to hear Mark talk. I know that we recently had profiled him, but it's something different just to hear someone talk about their experience. And you can tell that he's undergone such a transformation through his own entrepreneurial journey. And I really loved what he said first at the beginning, that you teach what you yourself want to learn. And this idea of like writing and processing through that, and then how he has used his own writing and kind of creative practice then to fuel his business, and the two seem to feed off of one another.
Great guy. I'm looking forward to meeting him in person the next time. I'm actually going to be in California in a couple of weeks. And I'm going to hit him up and see if we can hang out for a bit. Looking forward to seeing the man in real life.
Yeah, I'm really curious too, just to hear your own thoughts, because you've been an entrepreneur for so many handfuls of years now. Is there any takeaway that really resonated for you in speaking with him?
He's going to nail the whole thing. The sort of, I want to say, just like mental illness that an entrepreneur experiences after they exit their company is like very real. I think he handled it really well. It's not something they think they're preparing for it, but they're not really. And, this idea that, okay, you did this thing, you sold the company, you got some money in the bank, everything should be great. Maybe not. He's got a really good take on this. This idea that money's important, absolutely. But just having it, you need a lot more in your life than that.
Yeah, and I think that he really does kind of focus in on this piece of, right, like money isn't everything. It is, right? It makes the world go round. It allows you to kind of have access to certain things, but it doesn't bring happiness, as the old adage says, right? And that's what he was really kind of tapping into, of like, where am I finding this purpose and fulfillment in my life? Like, is it through work, or is it through something bigger than that, and how I'm relating to my work and then my life at large?
Absolutely. What do we got coming up? What are our interesting news stories this week, Margaret? What have you scoured the world of the World Wide Web? What have you found for us?
So, next up, we are going to be looking at AI generated perfected bodies messing with our perception of health. There's been a lot of like AI influencers popping up on the scene. Let's just start there. Let's start with that one. Have you encountered these?
I have to say they're an upgrade on the real thing. I mean,
But are they attainable?
of course not. Well, the real thing isn't either. Like, the whole thing is just here I am. I'm a Kardashian in my Lamborghini, and I have my whole like glam squad before I get out of bed in the morning, and this is what I look like, and is my life fabulous? I'm going to the Maldives today, and like that's interesting. So, I mean, the next level is just like let's not even bother with paying the Kardashians a residual. Let's just make them buy. So, okay,
Yeah. Which is so wild to think that, I don't know, to be able to look at that and see this has been popping up, especially with fitness influencers, right? Like, oh, I want to look like that,
oh right.
that body to do that. But it's like, that's not even, it's not even a human. It
So
looks like a human. It's,
my previous career as a photographer, and I shot a lot of famous models. And the thing is, supermodels don't even look like supermodels. Like a cover shoot is going to cost $30,000, $40,000 to make that picture happen with some really highly skilled people with lights and makeup and hair and like the whole bit, and then do all the computer enhancements. People would be like, "Oh, wow, I'm going to look like her." Well, like she isn't going to look like her. There's a human history of idealization of beauty and figure. And Michelangelo's David, was there actually a model that looked like that? Or did he just, idealize that? I don't know.
there's always kind of been a little bit of distortion in human perception of how we're perceiving like the idealized human form. But in the age of technology, it's just so wild to think. And, like, frankly, like, sad. It's just, like, that you have, like, social media already kind of, like, warps our perception, and then you're adding an
There's,
AI
there's
human
really,
like influence.
really easy solution to this. Just don't look at it.
Yeah.
What? Okay. I mean, I,
Well, I wonder if some people even realize that it is AI. It's gonna be interesting to see how that all unfolds.
yeah.
But getting into our other piece of news here. So psychedelics for menopause, mood support, it's moving a little bit more mainstream. We've been talking about women's health here and there on the podcast in recent months. But there's been a lot of exploratory articles, such as one published in Time and Leisure UK, and it was showing an interest in psilocybin for menopausal symptoms and midlife women's emotional health. So psychedelics, we know that they've maybe been tied for some people to like younger adult mental health, but it's extending into kind of people over 50 menopause.
Of the people I know who've done, I have a very good friend of mine. I had a conversation with her last night, and she did 3 rounds of ketamine,
Mm,
um, and described it as like the best thing she'd ever done. And she's mid-50s, and she was like, first time in my life, I'm not depressed.
mm.
Interestingly enough, I don't know. I mean, except for you guys, I don't know that many people under 30, but the people I know who've done psilocybin or ayahuasca or ketamine or MDMA, they're all over 50.
Yes.
They're like, they're in their 60s. We had on the podcast a couple of years ago the head of the Psychedelic Medical Association, and she's a lawyer and an MD, and we had a long discussion about this, about how there's sort of the party use of psychedelics, like you go to Burning Man and whatever, and then there's the more supervised therapeutic use. And we had a guy on from where are you from? Berkey Institute. So they run psilocybin retreats in Jamaica, the Netherlands. And these are very different. And I know there are places upstate in New York that I know people go to, and they're really carefully orchestrated and carefully supervised, and it's all about setting and integration of the experience. And like I'm a fan. I think like there's clear evidence about PTSD and trauma, things like that. Things are tremendously helpful. So there are people who, when going through hormonal changes, they can have a lot of difficulty with that and depression. So like, why not? This is sure if this works, yeah, try this.
Well, yeah, and such like a huge like life shift like that, right?
Yeah.
Like physiologically, like mentally, hormonally, something to kind of like help you get over the other side is pretty in keeping kind of with the tradition of how plant medicine has been used in different cultures. So it's not a surprising new application, maybe within the modern for some people. But
I think it's great.
yeah, I'll be interested to see if that continues to kind of pop up more as a trend or if more literature comes up. The world might be a better place if more
Yeah.
people did mind expanding plant medicine.
Yeah. No,
Um,
it works. I don't know. What's next?
Well, the last thing we're going to talk about is what our lovely producer Drew mentioned at the top, which I feel like every podcast under the sun has been talking about, is the Louvre jewel heist that happened.
This is my insight. I've lived in Paris a couple of times, and the preponderance of crime there, a certain kind of crime, is shockingly large. Like where did Kim Kardashian get held up? Paris. These sort of criminal gangs that are involved in thievery. Like that. I mean, I guess it happens. It happens in the US. It happens in New York. It doesn't happen as much in Paris. Like, I've never heard of anybody being pickpocketed in New York, but you hear about it all the time in Paris. In Europe, there's a very rich history of things like jewel thieves.
I mean, it's impressive in today's age to be able to pull something like that off.
I'm sure they gave it some thought for a while.
Yeah, the Pink Panther come to life.
Yeah, exactly. Like that stuff, it does happen here from time to time. There's the Isabel Stewart Gardner Museum. Those famous paintings were taken, it was like the early 90s. What was that, like 30 years ago, 40 years ago? So this stuff is pretty rare here, but over there, it's not. Generally doesn't work out for them long term, though. That's it for this week. If you haven't yet, please subscribe to the Aegis newsletter. Go to aegis.com/newsletter. Today, we're featuring a champion outrigger canoe paddler, Alana Rupniski, who's rewriting what aging can really look like.
And if you have a story of your own to share, please go to aegis.com/story. We want to hear from you, and who knows, your story might be next on the podcast or on our website.
Stay strong, stay vibrant, don't rob the Louvre, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.